Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this afternoon edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Dan Holmey. In today's episode, we're talking about Ilya Protas as he prepares to make his debut with the Capitals, and the questions that I have about why did we wait this long? That we only have, a handful of games left, and now we're going to get a look at Ilya Protas. Is this ultimately the team pushing all of their chips in, or is this the Capitals saying, we're out of it. Let's get a look at this kid before the end of the season. So let's dive into it here, and I'll talk to you about both sides of the coin. About this isn't a debut. This is desperation mode for the Capitals, and it kind of feels that way. And definitely on the outside looking in, and, like I've talked about on the show, it's follow the bouncing ball with the Capitals. We're good, we're bad. We're good, we're bad. That you take down a team like the Sabres, third place in the Atlantic, and then you fall to the New York Rangers, a team that's in last place in the Metro. I think that Ilya Protas could absolutely give this team the jolt that they so desperately need. Is it enough? That is the bigger question, because the Capitals calling up Ilya Protas isn't about development. It's about survival. That if the season does, as a matter of fact, end with Columbus next week, that we did at least what we possibly could do internally. And let me just say it, this is not a normal NHL debut situation. This isn't some cushy get your feet wet in November. This is a team that just got absolutely steamrolled 8-1. Playoff odds basically circling the drain, and suddenly, boom, you throw a 19-year-old into your mix. Led the AHL Hershey Bears in goals, and again, is it too little too late? But adding him this late tells you everything. Head coach Spencer Carberry basically admitted it without saying it outright, saying, quote, with where we're at, he's coming in at this moment could potentially give us a jolt of energy, unquote. That's the hard part, though, right? That the Capitals would pretty much have to win, I think, every game, right, until the end of the season, and in order to somehow, some way, make it into the playoffs. And, you look at it, had the Capitals been playing in the Pacific right now, they would be tied for first place. So I think it speaks a lot about this team, that maybe they're not as bad as they appear. I think the Metro got that much better, but they're in the position that they're in, and that is ultimately why they're trying for a last desperation move by calling up a big contributor in Hershey. But talking about that, not development, not evaluation, a jolt. That is what the Capitals are looking for. That is a code for we are out of answers. And honestly, it makes a lot of sense. The Capitals are running out of runway. The offense has been inconsistent, and the energy completely flat after that Rangers loss. So now you're looking at a kid who just dropped 62 points in 66 AHL games, including a 6-point explosion for the first time in the AHL since 2019. And you're thinking, yeah, sure, maybe this guy saves us. Now, to be clear here, if he does save this team and they somehow, some way make it to the playoffs and he had something to do with it, that should get you exceedingly excited about what lies ahead for the Capitals, which, you look at it, hoping he can save us, which is kind of wild when you say it out loud. Let's not ignore this part. He's not easing in on the third line. Nope. And again, this was just practice. Don't read too much into it, but very well could be. He skated with his older brother, Alexei Protas, and Tom Wilson. Could you imagine that a line? I mean, I if it's not, if it's not game time ready, that's one thing. But, definitely a peek into the future, if you will. But if that is, as a matter of fact, what is out on the ice Wednesday evening versus the Maple Leafs, well, that is must-see TV, even if you're not so vested in the Capitals' pursuits of the playoffs. But when you talk about that, like I said, not easing them in there, that's development, that's pressure, that is expectation. And Protas himself even said it, quote, "It's a childhood dream. I was shaky for a bit, unquote. Yeah, no kidding, right? You're stepping into a playoff race that is basically on fire. All right, so coming up here after the break, the numbers say the kid is different, but context matters. I'll discuss straight ahead. The NBA playoffs are here where every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a way to get in on the action. Here's what I love about it. You can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That makes it easy to follow the action with player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. And during the playoffs, that extra insight really matters when you're looking at stars, role players, and key moments. So get up for the NBA, and FanDuel makes it so exciting for me. I gotta imagine it'll make that much exciting for you as well. So head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that, really says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help your job get the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about it on the Locked On Capitals podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. All right, welcome back into this afternoon edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we're talking all the hype that surrounds Protas or Pro, as Spencer Carberry is going with Big Pro and Pro. There's no little Pro here. Let's not make it a knock against Ilya Protas. So let's dive into it. And what do the numbers show? Do any of the stats in the American League, do they translate to the NHL? Because when you talk about the numbers and the kid, his numbers are different. There is contextual information because Ilya Protas has elite production. There is no doubt. But translating that instantly to the NHL, that is a huge gamble. So I think at the end of the day, we need to temper expectations and pump the brakes just a little bit here because the numbers are insane. Leads AHL rookies in points, top 10 in overall league scoring, dominates underline power play production, stands 6'6", 225 pounds. So a lot like your host in a lot of ways. I am also 6'6", little under 225, but that's not just good. That's why this is a guy why has this guy not already been in the NHL? That is the question, right? That I pointed to those stats, which I think we could safely say are glowing. Why are we waiting until only, 5 games left this season to get a look at this guy? And Carberry even leaned into it saying, quote, what he's accomplished from a production standpoint is up there. Really, really impressive, unquote. And it is. But here's the thing, right? We've seen this before. AHL dominance does not equal NHL success, especially immediately. And I know we saw a nice jump from Cole Hudson, but Cole Hudson is an exception, and he also went from BU to the Capitals. And the situation he's walking into is, let's call it what it is, brutal, high-pressure games, tight playoff race, no margin for mistakes, and top 6 minutes against elite competition. he's not playing in Hershey anymore, that we want to see. We want to take Ilya Protas on a road test with, you're trying to see if you want to buy the car or not, pop it and drive and punch it and see how it performs. There is no break-in period. There is no going under the speed limit for X amount of miles to break the engine in. This is popping it into drive and punching it. How will Ilya Protas respond to the punching it in which I speak of? Because this is not a soft landing. Now, what does make this different, though? His game isn't just offense, that he is not single-dimensional. He is multi-dimensional. He said it himself, quote, "I think it's more my 200-foot game responsibility in all three zones," unquote. And that's key. Underline that one. Remember that quote, because if he can win battles, play defensively, support puck possession, then even if he's not scoring right away, he's not hurting you. And playing with his brother, that familiar factor, if you want familiarity, how about flesh and blood? This matters more than people think. There is built-in chemistry, built-in communication. These guys are used to practicing together, and Carberry called it, quote, insulation. And yeah, that's probably the only thing keeping this from being completely overwhelming. But still, let's be real here. We are asking a 19-year-old teenager to help fix a broken NHL team in April. Ugh. That is a lot. All right, so coming up here after the break, this game versus Toronto is a defining moment. I'll break it all down straight ahead. Spring is a natural reset point, and if there's one thing that can quietly cost businesses money, it's messy communication. Missed calls, scattered texts, no clear thread of who said what. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communication. Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2 with over 3,000 reviews, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses. It lets your entire team share one business number so you never miss a call, text, or opportunity. Listen, before Quo, communication at my job was a mess. Quo made it a breeze. Let it make your life a breeze as well. The part I love, everything lives in one clean thread. Calls, texts, voicemails. The whole team sees the conversation so nothing falls through the cracks. Make this the season that no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/LockedOnNHL. That is QUO.com/LockedOnNHL. Quo. No missed calls, no missed customers. All right, welcome back into this afternoon edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Wednesday night is a what? Must-win game. Yeah, they're all must-win games for the duration of this season, but a lot of impact. How will the Capitals fare against the lowly Maple Leafs? Yes, another team that is not having the season that they had hoped for. Let's talk about the implications of this matchup on Wednesday night, because if the Capitals are, as a matter of fact, going to salvage anything, it starts against the Leafs. And Ilya Protas is right in the middle of it, because here we go. Toronto Maple Leafs on the road, season hanging by the tiniest thread, and you're debuting a 19-year-old into your top 6. Again, this is what we saw at practice. What is actuality remains to be seen, and you couldn't script it to have any more pressure if you tried. In this game, it is not just another game. This is the moment. Because let's be honest, you've got 4 games left, right? That is what we have. We have the Maple Leafs. We have 2 against the Penguins and 1 against Columbus. I was giving them an extra game there. 4 games left. Your playoff chances are collapsing. And the locker room just got embarrassed 8-1 in a big way against the Rangers, which, historically isn't a bad thing. But this year's Rangers, awful. And if you come out flat again, it is over. There is to be no more talk about, if we do one more thing, it is over. It very well could be over right now, but especially over if you fall Wednesday night. This is, as a matter of fact, the Capitals launching all their weapons, and they have one weapon left in their arsenal. It is the Ilya Protas weapon. Let's hope it works, right? And that's why this Protas move matters so much, not just long-term, but long-term. He represents, not just long-term, but right now. He represents something the Capitals desperately need: energy, hunger, and urgency. Because the veterans, right, Tom Wilson, Alex Ovechkin show up, but sometimes they don't. They look drained. And you could hear it even in Protas's voice, quote, "I can't wait, it's special," unquote. That is excitement. That is contagious. And maybe, just maybe, that's what sparks something. Now, the question, will it be enough? That is the big question, because one player, even a really talented one, isn't fixing defensive breakdowns, goaltending inconsistency, and lack of scoring depth. The goaltending has been good, but when you rely on Charlie Lindgren, not so good. You got to think that LT is going to be in there. But LT, another guy that at this point of the season has to be absolutely exhausted. So what can he ultimately do? Shift the momentum, change the feel of the game, make something happen around the net, like Carberry pointed out. And if that line with Wilson and Alexei Protas, if that's actually a thing Wednesday night, now you're talking about a legitimate matchup problem. Big bodies, skill, chemistry. That's nothing special. But again, we're asking a lot from a 19-year-old. So here's where I land on the whole thing. If the Capitals come out flying, if Protas looks comfortable, if that line generates chances, then maybe there's still a pulse. Maybe. Not feeling anything right now. But if not, this debut might end up being remembered less as a turning point and more as a moment the Capitals realize the future has arrived. And I'm kind of leaning into the latter there a little bit. Yes, I do think that's the case. I think the Capitals think that this is a long shot because it is a long shot. And they're looking at it on two sides of the coin. If he gives us a bump, good. But if not, we got to look at him, right? Because the present wasn't good enough. Maybe we'll get a peek into the future. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me on this afternoon edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Of course, I'll have much more on this for you later on the full-length edition of Locked On Capitals tomorrow for your morning commute, but feeling good. It is good to see Ilya Protas on the ice, playing with his brother, playing with the big kids. And it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out on Wednesday night. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, and I'll talk to you again next time.